It is Tuesday. It is January the 12th, and I'm jumping on to talk about the post I released yesterday. This is why your investments suck. But first things first, like this post, subscribe if you're on YouTube, double tap that screen if you're on IG, follow me on Twitter. Trump ain't on there anymore, but I'm still on there. So you can go on Twitter, follow me there. You can also go on Facebook and like the page. We have 23,000 people that we crossed yesterday on Facebook that are following, getting close to 2,000 on IG. I want that number to get higher. And Twitter and all the rest of the socials, we're growing as well. So make sure you like the page, share the video, do what you got to do because I want this following to grow and I want more people to get the info I'm sharing out. So yesterday, I released a post, and here's the reason why I released this post. You're going to start getting your investment statements for the annuals. Looking at 2020, annual statements going to start coming in probably about next week. Usually the third week of the month you start to get these statements. Everyone pretty much has it for the annual returns by the end of the month following that year. I want people to start thinking about what their investments are invested in because for the most part, when I meet people, they are drastically underperforming when it comes to their investments, whether it be their tax-free savings account or their RRSP, the Registered Retirement Savings Plan. I want people to really take a look at these. Now, when you look at last year, there could be a lot of things that you chalk up bad performance to. Could be COVID, more than likely COVID, right? Obviously shook the world. We had a massive decline in March. But here's the issue with it. Markets actually rebounded very well. My advanced portfolio actually did about 16.72%. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen every year, and I'm not saying that is a trend that should be followed. All I'm saying is that if you are invested properly for the long term, there is no way you should be in the low percentiles or even negative. So whoever put you in what they put you in, you're not achieving your goals. And I want people to really focus on what's going on right now because the big issue is the longer you stay in these inadequate, underperforming, underwhelming portfolios, you're costing yourself money, but even worse, you're costing yourself time. And that's my biggest reason for releasing this post. So let's get into the real reasons why your portfolio is underperforming. Big thing, first things first, a lot of people will say, well, my portfolio didn't perform, and here's what the IG influencers or the people who think they know what they're talking about will say. It's because of the fees. Well, yes, fees are an issue. Fees will not make your portfolio underperform. Fees will hurt you in the long run, but they don't hurt you on the annual basis. You need to be cognizant of fees, but you also need to be cognizant of performance. They'll also say that you're not invested in things for growth, such as Tesla or tech, or even something as weird as Bitcoin. Now, the big thing about it is that, I'm going to get into this in the post, is that these are weird substandard reasons, and all they're doing is made to confuse you. The problem is that people don't get to the root of it. The root of it is the things that I'm going to list right now. So let's just jump right into it, talk about why your investments suck, why they're underperforming, why you're dealing with what you're dealing with on a regular basis. So I'm going to switch right over. This is why your investments suck. I get a little spicy in this one, so bear with me. This is just how I am. First things first, and Dave Ramsey jumps all over this. You're not saving enough. You can't make money with no money. That is the hardest thing. People think that, well, okay, my money hasn't doubled. Well, okay, your $1,000 isn't going to double in a year, or it's more than likely not even going to gain 10% on the average over time. What you need to look at is getting a return of 8 to 12%. But the issue is, on $1,000 or $10,000 or even $100,000, that's not going to change your life. What you need to do is be contributing on a regular basis. You need to be adding money to these funds. When you first start off, your money is going to be mostly gaining from the contributions you put in. So if you put in $1,000 or $1,200 a year and you gain 10%, that's your $1,200 plus interest. That 100 and 150 around in interest is not going to fully gain you a wealthy retirement. So you need to contribute. Dave Ramsey says this all the time. You need to be contributing, and that's where your biggest issue is. I say this first because that's a massive, massive issue that people don't understand. They think they're going to put their money in something and it's just going to double in a couple years. It's not how it works. It's a long tread, but what you need to do is put money in on the regular. And if you're doing this, dollar cost averaging and time will take its course and you're going to see the growth over time, but it's not going to happen overnight. And you need to be saving on a regular basis. People may not tell you this, or they're focusing on other things that aren't that important. Save your damn money. And this is why the budget's so important. This is why debt is so important, for it to be gone. These money influencers will tell you that certain debt's okay and certain debt's not okay. Not true. All debt's not okay because it's costing you money that you could be saving and investing. Now, a mortgage debt is less bad than, say, a credit card, but imagine if you had that $1,000 mortgage payment. Instead of that, you could be investing it. And people I have that are clients around 45 that have no mortgage, they are aggressively putting money into their retirement accounts. That is huge, huge, huge stuff. And to me, that's far more important than a low interest mortgage payment that you think is not harmful to you. It is. You got to get that debt gone. You're paying interest on it. Now, it might not be as much as your credit card, but over time, it really, really adds up. And think of all the extra cash flow you can have without that mortgage payment. Again, and obviously, we all know that lines of credit, credit cards, auto loans, those things are really killing us. So you're not saving enough. Get the budget in place. You need to create that surplus every month. So you put money away to save your money. Save more money. There is nothing wrong with that. There is no downside to that. Ever, 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 ever. Okay, that's point one. You're not actually invested at all. And I come across this all the time. An old friend from high school, and I'm talking like 20 years ago, reached out to me and said that her investments hadn't moved at all. They haven't moved at all. So she's not invested in anything. It's in a high interest savings account. High interest savings account doesn't really do anything for you. The bank will lure you in with these high interest savings accounts that are going to promise you 1.5% to 2%. And 1.5% to 2% isn't going to help you reach your retirement goals if you're a younger person. Now, when you've built up wealth, 1.5%, 2%, 3%, these are decent returns if you have $1 million or if you are leaving money to the next generation. That's fine. But for people who are in their younger days, you really need to let the market work for you. And if you're not invested in anything, it could just be sitting in straight cash, which in fact is losing money every year to inflation. Your coffee is going to cost more next year. Your rent's going to cost more next year. Everything's going to cost more next year. And then can you only imagine what it will cost in 30 years ready to retire? So you need to take a look at these things. If it's not moving, it's probably because it's not invested in anything at all. The whole purpose of investing your money is to invest your money. So invest your money. Savings account is not an investment. It's not. It is a cash account that allows you to access your cash. Okay? You're not properly invested. That's another one, right? So a lot of I'm in Canada. Maybe not we're in Canada, but I'm in Canada, right? So what we need to look at is that advisors will often put people in a heavily concentrated account that is in that area. So I see a lot of investment statements from clients or potential clients that are just heavily concentrated in Canada. The one thing about it is that Canada, although it's an amazing country and I love being here, the Canadian economy is very small compared to the world stage. What we need to do is diversify our portfolio. That is what I'm talking about. Diversify, spread out the risk. You need to get some growth from the US. You need to get some national and from the emerging markets. And I follow the Dave Ramsey 4-step style of investing. I look at growth and income. Now, this is your big and boring companies like your banks and your life cos. This is companies that usually pay dividends. So this is companies that are mandated to show a profit all the time. And you wonder why banks show record profits every quarter. Reason being is because for their shareholders, they need to pay that dividend. They need to make a profit every damn quarter, no matter what's going on. So these are your big and boring companies that always grow. Now, they're not going to dazzle you with growth every year, but they will pay a dividend. They will help your account stay stable and grow over time. Growth. Growth is important. These are your small or your mid-cap funds where these are actually companies that have growth potential, but they ebb and flow with the market. So you'll see them go down, but you'll see them go up. You'll rarely see banks go down, but you'll see these accounts or these funds or these companies go down. And the reason being is because the economy has a heavy influence on them. So when the economy is booming, people are spending money, and these are the companies that have larger growth potential. So you'll see them ebb and flow with the actual economy itself and with what we're dealing with. Oftentimes political strife will influence them. these actually have more growth potential than your growth and income funds. So check out growth. The next one's aggressive growth. These are your smaller cap funds. So these are smaller companies that are on the verge of making it big or on the verge of hitting that next level. This is what Dave Ramsey calls your wild child. This is where you can get some amazing growth potential. It's also regions and sectors that may be very volatile. Think of emerging markets. Now, my emerging market fund that I utilized last year had 37% returns. Now, next year, it might actually be down 20%. But overall, this fund's achieving massive growth. The problem is it's very volatile, which means that we don't want to have our whole portfolio in it because we don't want to see massive swings from our whole portfolio on any given basis. The goal is long-term growth. Now, this emerging market account made up for the lack of what was going on in my Canadian fund that I utilized, which only achieved about 8% growth. So the 37 brought up the 8, right? And that's basically why we diversify. International. So these are your stalwarts of around the world. You're looking at Europe and you're looking at Asia. These are big companies from around the world that will help you spread out regional risk, such as American economy dropping, Canadian economy dropping. We're heavily tied to the U.S. here in Canada. So if their economy lags, so will ours more than likely. So what we need to do is spread out, get some international exposure, the EU, Europe, even Central America and Africa, to make sure that we're not tied completely to North America. These regions of my portfolios are a little bit smaller. Reason being is they can be a little bit more volatile, and I want to make sure that people aren't experiencing dramatic swings. If you follow these 4 areas in the funds that you use, you will grow on a regular basis. That doesn't mean every year you'll grow. There could be down years, and there have been down years, but over time you should achieve what Dave Ramsey calls that 10 to 12% return. I'm not saying this is a guarantee. What I am saying is that if you strive for 8 and then you get 10, you're going to be quite happy. Anyone that promises you anything, run for the hills. So I've shared a link to Dave Ramsey's investing post. You can check it out and why he recommends that. This is the one I used, and I found funds within this area that will actually match this investing style, and they do quite well, and I'm quite proud of that. Lazy advisor. So this is a big one. Sorry, I'm going to take a sip of coffee because I got to prep myself for this one. Sorry. There are a lot of lazy advisors out there. There are a lot of bad advisors out there. There are a lot of people that don't quite know what they're doing. And the big issue with it is that they'll put you into funds that there's no rhyme or reason to it. You have to have an investment philosophy. What I just described, I've read through Ramsey's books and I chose this investing style because it's what made the most sense and it was the most concrete plan versus other plans I looked at for my clients. And it works, so I'm quite happy I did it. Now, I am monitoring this over time. This isn't a one set it and forget it thing. Lazy advisors don't do that. Lazy advisors, what they'll do is they'll throw you into one singular fund. For instance, your bank will put you into the Comfort Balance portfolio when you're 21 years old, putting in your tax-free savings account or your RRSP, and they'll put you in this Comfort Balance portfolio that has achieved about a 4.5% to 5% rate of return over time. That is not what you need to be in. If it was explained to you properly, you might come out aggressive or advanced because you realize that you have 25, 30, 35, 40 years until you're ready to retire. So why on earth would you be balanced? For the most part, my clients who are in balanced portfolios tend to be in the 50-year-old range or even in the 60-year-old range, sometimes even in the 70 or 80-year-old range. Balanced people often tend to need this money in the near future. So your tax-free savings account might be balanced because you might be pulling from it for a specific purpose, but your retirement account, why is that balanced? Has someone explained to you that you're probably not going to use this for the next 30, 40 years? When you go through an investment questionnaire that I go through with my clients, I try and explain each question thoroughly and get them to look at exactly what the question is asking. It's asking, when are you going to need this money? How do you feel if your money goes down in 1 year in relation to when you're going to need it? Well, if it goes down dramatically in 1 year, but you know you're not going to need it for 30, chances are you don't care about that 1 year return that much. Now, the big thing about it is that lazy advisors don't do this. Lazy advisors advisors will put people in cookie cutter portfolios that is one fund, the Comfort Balance Fund or the Select Growth and Income Fund, and they'll just keep them there. These funds also tend to have higher fees because there's a lot of people in them. There's a lot of moving parts. There's usually a bureau of people that run these funds. There's a lot of mechanisms, including rebalancing services and stuff like that. So the big thing about it is that these funds tend to have higher fees. You tend to get lower service and underperform. These funds, I'm sorry. So I want people to understand that the lazy advisor who is not constantly coming up with ideas on how your money should grow or doesn't have an investment philosophy, you need to run for the hills, because you could be trapped in this for, say, age 20 to 30 and lose out on 50% of growth if you would have got a 10% return over that given amount of time. Now, the returns aren't guaranteed, but what is guaranteed is that if you're in an underperforming fund, you are losing money. That's a guarantee. So you need to make sure that your investor or your advisor has an investment philosophy. Chances are, at the bank, this doesn't occur because of time. It takes time. They have so many people they need to deal with. They have so many things they need to do on a regular basis. They don't have time to put in an effort for your small portfolio or starting up a monthly contribution of $200 a month or $100 a month. They don't have the time to do that. They'll throw you in what they got and then they'll move on. And you could be spending valuable years in these underperforming portfolios simply because someone was too lazy to actually put together something that can work for you and get you some growth. So don't let the lazy advisor screw you out of returns. The next one, you're underexposed to the market. So people often complain when they see a plunge in their account. Oh, it went down 10%. What happened? What's going on? I'm happy when I see that. And the reason is this. No, I'm not happy when people drop in their accounts or lose money in their accounts. What I'm happy about is that they're feeling the market. If you don't drop when things go down, you're not going to grow when things go up. What should scare you is if your account doesn't move at all. If it doesn't move at all, that means you're not invested in anything, like I mentioned before. You are underexposed to the market. You do not want to not see fluctuation in it if you are invested for the long term. The reason being is because you're not going to see any movement upwards. My clients who are in advanced portfolio saw about a 20% drop last March. They gained all that back by July and then finished the year positive 16+%. Now, that fluctuation there, yeah, it's kind of scary and yeah, it's kind of frightening. My advice, just don't look at it. If it really bothers you that much, don't look at it. The big thing about allow yourself time for your money to grow. And if you don't do that, it's not going to happen. So if you're underexposed to the market, you are not getting the growth from various areas, the 4 areas that I mentioned before. You touch them too much. I have one of my favorite clients. She has a good amount of money she got from an inheritance, and she has a mark in her head of where she wants her investments to go. Now, they perform quite well, which I'm happy about. She's like, oh, I hope they get to this point. And she's like, do you think it could do that? My advice to her was stop friggin' touching them. Quit touching your money. If you keep pulling money out, oftentimes you're going to pull it out at inopportune times, like when the market's down. So that means you bought high and you sold low, which is a big no-no. I think we all know that. But you're going to pull out at inopportune times. And then if you put it back in when it goes back higher, what's going to happen is you're going to miss out on all that growth. That's a big one. If you keep making switches or you keep getting creative and thinking that, okay, this fund's not doing well, I'm going to get out. Or this fund's not doing well, I'm going to get out. You keep touching things, it's not going to happen. The biggest thing you need to do is put it in place correctly right from the get-go and leave it the hell alone. If you touch them too much, a colleague of mine once said, it's like a bar of soap. It just gets smaller and smaller the more you touch it. So stop touching your investments. Stop playing around with them. Stop withdrawing money. This is why I have my bucket system. Put money in your bucket for your checking account for your day-to-day, savings account for emergencies, investment accounts for investing. Leave them there. They can't grow if you take the money out. 100% they cannot grow if you keep taking money out. Build up your savings and checking accounts so you don't have to touch your investment. That's your protection for your investments. You're not going after them when the markets dip or when you need money. Huge, huge thing. And I cannot emphasize that enough. You got too cute. Or your advisor got too cute. These are people who think they're creative geniuses and they're going to like reinvent the wheel and, oh, I'm going to show you this amazing fund that did quite well last year. If it did quite well last year, do you think it's going to do it again? Why are you chasing last year's returns? Advisors will do this all the time. All the time. Oh, it did 30% last year. I put my portfolio together based on my investment philosophy. I didn't put it together based on last year's returns. I put it on 5 and 10-year returns. This is what it's done over 5 to 10 years. That's how the portfolio was based. It wasn't based on 1-year returns. And in fact, I'm not switching it, even though the Canadian fund only did about 7 or 8%. And I'm not switching the emerging markets fund, even though it did 37%. These funds are the funds. They perform well over time, and that was the goal. If you're getting too cute and introducing weird things like resource funds or precious metal funds, or heavily concentrating yourself in this emerging market fund that I mentioned that has done quite well, you are at the risk of losing money, because these funds that do quite well 1 year are often volatile. Like I said, growth funds, you don't see 37% jumps in them. Emerging market funds, you can. Precious metal funds, you can. So the issue is that you don't want a huge chunk of your portfolio in that fund, because what can happen is that you're going to see massive volatility. Also, if a fund's done quite well, that means that the holdings within it, the companies within it have done quite well. How many companies multiple years in a row can gain 20, 30, 40% multiple years in a row? I follow the market all the time. I'm watching hot new stocks. I'm taking a look at things. I don't see many companies that perform regularly like that. So you need to make sure that if someone's putting you in last year's hot pick, chances are it won't be as hot, and it might even lose, right? So you need to understand that. Stop getting cute. Stop thinking of things to double your money. Stop thinking of Bitcoin and crap like that in all reality might not even exist in 5 years. So let's get back to basics. Fundamentals of a portfolio, keep our philosophy strong, and that's why I stick by what I stick by. I justify it with my words and actions. I don't justify it by looking at charts that show me green in 1-year returns. I don't do that. So this quote is actually quite amazing. Investing paint dry and watching grass grow. If you want excitement, take $800 and go to Vegas. So that's my post. Check it out. If you have questions about your investments, shoot me a message. The big thing about it is I want people to start looking at what they're getting. Also, in this post, I'm going to share my combo expenses worksheet. This is how you get your monthly budget in order. This is how you can create that surplus. I'm going to share the link to this. Over 400 people have downloaded this worksheet. A lot of people, I assume it is going to be for New Year's budgets, stuff like that, resolutions. I want people to download the worksheet, get going on their New Year's resolutions, get saving money, and get themselves in order for 2021, because there's no excuse anymore. We saw what 2020 brought. We know what this pandemic's doing to us. Let's get it in order. So that is my post from yesterday. Check out the post. The link is in the bio here. I'm sharing it all week. I'm writing posts every week. So this week we're talking about investments. Next week will be a new topic. Follow me on the socials at Real Budget Boss, Twitter, IG, and Facebook. Over 23,000 people on Facebook, approaching 2,000 people on IG. Subscribe on YouTube. Videos will all be linked on YouTube, or you can even find me on LinkedIn if you want to see a professional picture of me. So thanks for tuning in. Again, join in, check your investments. If you want to talk, shoot me a message at joe@budgetboss.ca, or you can book a meeting at budgetboss.ca/contact. Thank you very much, guys. Have a great day.